Stop for a moment and listen to the thoughts moving through your mind. How many of them are building the life you want? And how many are simply repeating fear, doubt, regret, and limitation? Every day you are using your imagination. You are imagining conversations, outcomes, possibilities, problems, and futures. The question is not whether you think. The question is what you are doing with your thoughts. A thought repeated often enough becomes familiar. A familiar thought becomes an assumption, and an assumption can quietly become the lens through which you experience your entire life. If you constantly imagine failure, you train yourself to expect failure. If you repeatedly imagine lack, you become emotionally familiar with lack. But if you begin imagining fulfillment, confidence, abundance, peace, and success, you begin establishing a different inner state. Your mind is not meant to be a place where fear runs endlessly without direction. Your imagination is a gift. Use it. Stop mentally rehearsing everything you fear. Stop giving your attention to problems that have not happened. Stop repeatedly telling yourself why you cannot have what you desire. Instead, begin using your thoughts intentionally. Imagine the outcome you want. Feel what it would be like if it were already true. See yourself as the person who has already crossed the bridge. Let your inner conversations support your desired reality rather than constantly contradict it. Today, you are going to discover how to stop wasting your thoughts and begin making them work for you. Because when you learn to direct your attention, choose your assumptions, and consistently return to the feeling of fulfillment, you are no longer simply thinking. You are consciously shaping the inner world from which your life unfolds. Your attention is one of the most valuable forces you possess, yet most people give it away without realizing it. From the moment you wake up, your mind begins moving from one thought to another. You think about yesterday, worry about tomorrow, remember old conversations, imagine possible problems, compare yourself with others, and react to whatever appears in front of you. Hours can pass while your imagination is constantly active, but very little of that mental energy is directed toward the life you actually want. This is why learning to control your attention is so important. You cannot always control what happens around you, but you can become increasingly conscious of what you choose to dwell upon. Whatever receives your repeated attention begins to occupy more space within you. If you continually focus on lack, you become familiar with the feeling of lack. If you constantly think about rejection, you become familiar with the expectation of rejection. If you repeatedly imagine failure, failure becomes easier for your mind to picture. Your mind begins treating these mental patterns as familiar territory. But the same principle can work in your favor. When you consistently direct your attention toward confidence, abundance, peace, success, and fulfillment, those states gradually become more familiar. You begin creating a new mental environment from which you experience your life. This does not mean that you should pretend problems do not exist. It does not mean that you must force yourself to think positively every second. It means becoming selective about what you repeatedly feed with your attention. A negative thought may appear naturally. You do not have to panic because of it. You do not have to fight it or criticize yourself. Simply recognize it and decide whether you want to continue entertaining it. A thought becomes powerful when you repeatedly return to it, emotionally invest in it, and make it part of your inner conversation. Imagine your attention as a spotlight. Wherever you point, that spotlight becomes clearer to you. If you point it toward everything that is going wrong, problems can appear larger than they actually are. If you point it toward possibilities, solutions, and the reality you want to experience, your awareness begins expanding in another direction. You start noticing things that were previously invisible because your mind is no longer completely occupied with limitation. This is why you must become intentional with your inner conversation. Instead of waking up and immediately thinking about everything that could go wrong, choose an assumption that supports the person you want to become. Tell yourself that today can bring opportunities. Imagine yourself handling challenges with confidence. See yourself moving through the day with calmness and purpose. These simple practices can gradually change the emotional atmosphere within you. Your attention also influences your actions. When you focus on possibility, you are more likely to notice opportunities and take constructive steps. When you focus exclusively on fear, you may hesitate, withdraw, or avoid opportunities altogether. Your inner focus affects your outer behavior. So begin today by observing where your attention goes. Ask yourself, asterisk, what am I repeatedly giving my mental energy to? If the answer is something you do not want to strengthen, gently redirect your attention. Think about what you want to build rather than what you fear might happen. Your attention is powerful. Use it deliberately. Stop allowing every circumstance, headline, conversation, or fear to control your inner world. Choose what deserves your imagination. Choose what deserves your emotional energy. Choose the reality you want to rehearse within. Because when you learn to direct your attention, instead of allowing your attention to direct you, your thoughts stop being wasted energy and begin becoming a conscious force for personal transformation. One of the most powerful ways to make your thoughts work for you is to stop constantly imagining the struggle and begin imagining the fulfillment. Most people spend their mental energy thinking about how difficult something will be, how long it might take, what could go wrong, or how far away their desired outcome seems. They focus so intensely on the journey that they repeatedly experience the feeling of not having arrived. They desire success, but mentally rehearse failure. They want abundance, but constantly think about lack. They want peace, but repeatedly imagine everything that could disturb it. The mind becomes occupied with the problem instead of the desired solution. To imagine the end means to mentally enter the experience of already having what you desire, instead of asking, how will I get there? For every moment of your inner practice, ask yourself, what would I feel if it were already accomplished? This changes the entire direction of your imagination. You are no longer staring at the distance between yourself and your goal. You are experiencing the destination from within. Suppose you desire financial freedom. Instead of spending your imagination worrying about bills, obstacles, and the exact path to more money, create a simple inner scene that represents fulfillment. Perhaps you imagine checking your finances and feeling calm. Perhaps you imagine telling someone you love, everything is taken care of. Perhaps you simply experience the quiet relief of knowing that you have enough. The scene does not need to be complicated. What matters is the feeling attached to it. The same principle can be applied to any meaningful desire. If you want a successful career, imagine yourself experiencing the satisfaction of having accomplished something important. If you desire a loving relationship, imagine the feeling of being valued, understood, and appreciated. If you want greater confidence, imagine yourself moving through an important situation with calm certainty. Your imagination becomes a place where you practice the emotional experience of fulfillment. The key is to make the experience personal. Do not watch yourself like a character in a movie. Experience it from your own perspective. Hear the words you would hear. Feel the emotions you would feel. Notice the environment around you. Let the scene become natural enough that for a few moments you are no longer thinking about wanting something. You are experiencing it within yourself. This practice is not about denying your current circumstances. It is not about pretending that practical responsibilities do not matter. Rather, it is about refusing to let present conditions control your entire inner world. You can acknowledge where you are while still choosing the mental direction in which you are going. The more often you imagine fulfillment, the more familiar that state can become. And when a desired state becomes familiar, your thoughts and actions can begin to change. You may become more confident. You may recognize opportunities more easily. You may approach challenges differently. You may become more willing to take constructive action because you no longer see yourself as someone destined to remain where you are. This is why imagining the end is so powerful. It changes the question from when will I finally have this to who am I when this is already mine. That question brings your attention back to identity, feeling, and possibility. So tonight, or whenever you have a quiet moment, close your eyes and choose one short scene that would naturally happen if your desire were already fulfilled. Enter that scene gently. Feel the relief. Feel the gratitude. Feel the confidence. Let yourself experience the end without forcing the details of the journey. Then release it and continue your life. You do not need to spend every hour thinking about your desire. A focused inner experience can be more valuable than endless mental repetition. Stop imagining the struggle. Stop rehearsing everything that could go wrong. Instead, give your imagination a new assignment. Asterisk, experience the fulfillment. When you repeatedly think from the end, your mind begins becoming familiar with the person you want to become, and that new inner familiarity can influence the way you see, choose, and move through the world. Your inner conversation is one of the most powerful habits shaping your daily experience. Long before you speak to another person, you speak to yourself. You interpret events, predict outcomes, judge your abilities, and describe your future through the silent conversations taking place within your mind. Most people never stop to examine these conversations. They simply accept whatever appears in their thoughts as truth. But a thought is not necessarily a fact. An assumption is not necessarily a permanent reality. You have the ability to become more selective about the ideas you repeatedly entertain. Consider how often you mentally rehearse conversations that never happen. You imagine someone criticizing you, imagine yourself failing, imagine an opportunity disappearing, or imagine everything going wrong. You may replay an old disappointment and experience its emotions all over again. Although nothing is physically happening in that moment, your imagination is creating an emotional experience within you. When these conversations are repeated, they can become familiar patterns that influence your expectations and behavior. This is why you must become the observer of your inner dialogue. Listen to the way you speak to yourself. What do you say when something goes wrong? Do you immediately tell yourself, I always fail? Do you say, nothing ever works for me? Do you assume that your future will simply repeat your past? Or do you give yourself another possibility? Your habitual language reveals the assumptions you are strengthening. Changing your inner conversation does not require pretending that every situation is perfect. You can acknowledge a challenge without making it your identity. Instead of saying, everything is falling apart, you can say, this is difficult, but I can handle it and find a way forward. Instead of saying, I will never succeed, you can say, I am learning, growing, and becoming more capable. Instead of saying, There are no opportunities. You can remind yourself, I am open to recognizing possibilities I cannot see yet. The difference may appear small, but repetition gives words power. When you repeatedly speak to yourself from confidence, possibility, and purpose, you begin creating a different emotional environment. You start expecting different things from yourself. Your actions become more aligned with the person you are choosing to become. One of the most valuable practices is to imagine a conversation that would occur after your desire has been fulfilled. Perhaps you hear a loved one congratulating you. Perhaps someone tells you how much you have changed. Perhaps you hear yourself saying, I knew I could do this. Allow that conversation to become a mental experience. Feel the satisfaction behind the words. Let your imagination rehearse success rather than continuously rehearsing disappointment. Your inner conversations should support your desired identity. If you want to become confident, speak internally as someone who trusts themselves. If you want abundance, stop constantly rehearsing financial catastrophe. If you want peace, stop mentally creating arguments that have not happened. If you want success, stop repeatedly explaining to yourself why success is impossible. This does not mean every thought must be positive. Human beings naturally experience fear, frustration, and uncertainty. The goal is not perfection. The goal is direction. When you notice that your mind has wandered into an unwanted story, gently return it to the story you want to strengthen. Think of your mind as a garden. Whatever you repeatedly cultivate will have greater opportunity to grow. If you constantly plant fear, resentment, and limitation, those states become familiar. If you cultivate gratitude, confidence, possibility, and fulfillment, you create a different inner landscape. So begin listening today. Your inner conversations are shaping your assumptions. Choose words that strengthen you. Choose thoughts that expand you. Choose mental conversations that reflect the person you are becoming. Because when you change the conversation within, you begin changing the state from which you live. And when your state changes, your choices, expectations, and actions can change with it. Asterisk, do not let your mind repeatedly rehearse the life you fear. Teach it to rehearse the life you desire. One of the greatest tests of your inner transformation comes when the outside world does not immediately reflect what you have begun believing within. It is easy to feel confident when everything appears to be working in your favor. It is easy to believe in abundance when opportunities are arriving, to believe in success when results are visible, and to feel peaceful when circumstances are calm. But what happens when you have chosen a new assumption and the world seems to contradict it? This is where persistence becomes essential. Many people change their thoughts for a few days and then look outside for immediate evidence. When they do not see what they expected, they become discouraged. They return to old fears and begin saying it isn't working. The moment they do this, they give their attention back to the very circumstances they were trying to move beyond. Instead of remaining faithful to their chosen state, they allow temporary appearances to determine what they believe is possible. Persistence means refusing to make temporary circumstances your final conclusion. This does not mean ignoring reality or refusing to take practical action. It means understanding that your present circumstances are not necessarily a complete description of your future. A difficult moment is still only a moment. A setback is an event, not an identity. A delay does not automatically mean denial. Think of a seed beneath the soil. If you looked at the ground shortly after planting it, you might see nothing. But the absence of a visible plant does not prove that nothing is happening. Growth can begin beneath the surface long before it becomes visible. In the same way, inner changes may influence your decisions, confidence, awareness, and behavior before their results become obvious. Your task is to remain faithful to the state you have chosen. If you have decided to think with confidence, return to confidence when fear appears. If you have chosen abundance, return to abundance when temporary lack becomes visible. If you have chosen peace, return to peace when circumstances become chaotic. This is not about pretending that you never experience negative emotions. You may still have moments of doubt. You may feel frustrated. You may become uncertain. That is part of being human. Persistence simply means that you do not allow those temporary emotions to become your permanent identity. When doubt appears, you can acknowledge it and then redirect your attention. You can say, "This is what I am feeling right now," but it does not have to determine what I believe about my future. Then return to your chosen assumption. Repeatedly returning to the desired state is what strengthens it. Imagine that you are learning a new skill. You would not practice once and expect mastery. You would repeat the process. You would make mistakes, correct yourself, and continue. Your inner life works similarly. Every time you redirect your attention from fear to possibility, you strengthen your ability to choose your state. Do not constantly check for proof. Do not measure your progress every hour. Do not allow every temporary event to change your belief. Instead, focus on becoming consistent within yourself. Let your imagination remain faithful to your desired outcome. Let your inner conversations support it. Let your actions reflect it. And when circumstances appear different, remember that appearances are information, not necessarily destiny. The person who persists develops something greater than optimism. They develop inner stability. They stop being controlled by every change in the external world. They become capable of holding a vision while still responding wisely to present circumstances. So when the world seems to contradict you, pause, breathe, return to your chosen assumption. Remember what you decided to believe about yourself. Then continue forward. Your goal is not to force life into submission. Your goal is to become so consistent in your inner direction that temporary circumstances no longer control your identity. Asterisk, persist in the state you want to make natural. Because when you stop allowing every external appearance to dictate your inner world, your thoughts become more intentional, your actions become more purposeful, and your vision becomes something you continue to carry until the path forward becomes clearer. The final step is not simply to think about the life you desire, but to become the person who naturally belongs in that life. Many people focus entirely on getting something. They want more money, greater success, a loving relationship, recognition, confidence, or freedom. But they rarely ask the deeper question. Asterisk, who must I become to naturally live this reality? This question changes everything because lasting transformation begins with identity. When you change the way you see yourself, your thoughts, expectations, decisions, and actions begin changing with you. Imagine that you desire financial abundance. If you continue seeing yourself as someone who is always unlucky, incapable, or destined to struggle, your thoughts will continue reflecting that identity. Even when opportunities appear, you may hesitate to recognize them. You may doubt your ability to handle greater responsibility. You may return to familiar patterns because they feel safe. The problem is not necessarily the opportunity. The problem may be that your current identity does not yet feel comfortable with the reality you desire. This is why you must begin practicing the identity now. Ask yourself, how the version of you who already lives your desired life would think. Would that person constantly panic over every temporary problem? Would they spend the entire day imagining failure? Would they repeatedly tell themselves that nothing is possible? Or would they approach life with greater confidence, patience, gratitude, and expectation? The purpose of this exercise is not to create a false personality. It is to discover qualities that already exist within you and strengthen them. If you desire confidence, begin making decisions from greater self-trust. If you desire abundance, begin developing an abundant attitude toward opportunities and possibilities. If you desire success, begin behaving like someone committed to learning, preparation, and disciplined action. If you desire peace, begin practicing calmness even when circumstances are imperfect. Your desired reality requires a corresponding inner state. This does not mean you must become perfect before your circumstances can improve. It means you can begin embodying the qualities associated with your desired future today. You do not have to wait until you become successful to think like a successful person. You do not have to wait until you become confident to practice confident behavior. You do not have to wait until everything is secure before cultivating inner peace. Start where you are. Every day gives you opportunities to practice your new identity. When a challenge appears, ask asterisk. How would the person I am becoming respond to this? When an opportunity appears, ask asterisk. Would I move forward from fear or would I respond with confidence and wisdom? Asterisk. These questions interrupt old patterns and create space for new ones. Your identity is strengthened through repetition. Every time you respond differently, you prove to yourself that you are capable of being different. Every time you choose courage over avoidance, you strengthen courage. Every time you choose patience over panic, you strengthen patience. Every time you choose possibility over limitation, you strengthen your new way of thinking. Eventually, what once required effort begins to feel natural. This is the deeper purpose of imagination. You are not merely imagining possessions or circumstances. You are rehearsing a new version of yourself. You are becoming familiar with the emotions, expectations, and behaviors of the person you desire to be. And when that identity becomes natural, your actions begin to follow it. You make different choices. You notice different opportunities. You develop different habits. You respond differently to setbacks. Your outer life can then begin changing as a consequence of your inner transformation and practical behavior. So do not ask only, asterisk, how can I get the life I want? Ask instead, asterisk, who am I becoming? Then begin living from that answer. Stop waiting for your future to give you permission to become confident, capable, peaceful, and abundant. Begin now. Because the greatest transformation happens when your desired reality stops being something you merely imagine and becomes something your identity is prepared to embody. Asterisk. Become the person who can naturally live the life you desire, and let your thoughts, choices, and actions begin proving that new identity every day. Before you leave this message, remember one thing. Your thoughts deserve your attention. Do not give your imagination away to fear. Do not spend your precious mental energy creating scenarios you never want to experience. Do not repeatedly rehearse disappointment and then wonder why doubt feels natural. You have the ability to choose where your attention goes. When an unwanted thought appears, you do not have to fight it. Simply refuse to build a home around it. Redirect your attention toward the state you want to cultivate. Imagine fulfillment. Assume possibility. Feel confidence. Think from abundance. Return to your chosen state again and again. The goal is not to become perfect.